Okay. All right, so it looks like the audio wasn't working. So I was talking to myself for a good 10 minutes, and I really enjoyed it. Although I don't think it helped anybody. Um, so basically, I'll go over what I went over before, which is that I want to talk about 5 ways to get the most out of your art time. So, like I said before, I hear this a lot from a lot of different creators, other artists, like at every level, that they don't have enough time to make the art they want to make at the quality level that they want to make it at. And I've been doing this for quite a long time, so there's a few things that I've learned over the years, and hopefully I can share those with you and maybe help you out. And if you guys have any questions while I'm doing this, I'm going to be drawing and talking at the same time. And I apologize for the audio mishap, but let's get back to it. All right, so I'm going to set the camera up. All right. So, like I said, it's always a big deal for creative people to find the time to do art, find time to do it, and to do it at the level that they want to do it at. So the first idea that I have about it is you want to set a beginning and an end to your work time. And this is important for a couple different reasons. It gives you time to mentally prepare for when you're going to start. So if you say, hey, I know I'm going to start doing art at 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 8:30 rolls around, and you start getting into that mental space where you're like, hey, 9 o'clock I'm going to create. And you may create for 10 minutes, you may create for 2 hours, you may create for 5 hours. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you adhere to a set amount of time, and you know that when you're kind of hit that mark, hey, I've completed something. I set time aside, I used all of it, and I was constructive with this time. So it kind of helps you get more goal-oriented with your art, and it also allows you to get sort of mini victories by knowing, well, hey, tonight I set 20 minutes aside and I did everything I could with it. So you're not sitting there saying, I wasn't able to, you don't feel as defeated when you don't feel like you're getting enough time. You know that you had a certain amount of time and you use it effectively. So like I said, setting a beginning and an end time to work is hugely important. It also gets you into a rhythm of setting time aside and using it specifically for your art. It's not like I'm going to watch TV and draw. It's I'm just going to draw, or I'm just going to create. So the second idea is, and I'll kind of go over these once I'm done with all of them, and I'll probably post a list in the thread. Hopefully give you guys a little something to think about. So my second idea is, yes, these are microns I'm inking with, but I ink with a lot of different stuff. So I love this pen, the Sailor. Anyhow, so the second concept is going mobile. What I mean by this is you can strip down your setup and bring it with you everywhere you go. And this is important because if you have 2 minutes while you're waiting for a bus or a train, or if you're waiting for your coffee at Starbucks, you could break out your stuff and start making progress on it. And you'd be surprised by how much you can get done when you have your work available to you at all times. And it's surprising how many creative people don't like to create in public. They want to create under very specific circumstances. And I understand that. You want to be comfortable when you're doing something that you really concentrate on, or that you want it to be the best. I totally get that. But I also think it's important to maybe think outside the box when you're trying to find something that is elusive, like extra time. So bringing your setup with you, working on it wherever or whenever you can, it's a huge tool, and it allows you also to integrate art kind of into your daily life. It's not just something that only happens under special circumstances. It happens whenever, wherever you decide to make it happen. And I think that puts you in a little bit more control as a creative person. And it also, I think, maybe opens you up to different ideas when you're out creating in your daily life and outside in the real world. So it's cool. It serves a lot of different purposes, I think. So third is what I call addition by subtraction. And this is probably, of the 5, would probably be considered the most controversial. And my thought behind this is art is a jealous thing, and it doesn't really want to share you with other things. It's a super demanding discipline. So sometimes you got to let go of something else in order to make art at the level that you want to make it at. So this may mean I'm going to play less video games, or I'm not going to binge watch some Netflix or something like that. And I'm not saying you need to do it forever, but showing that little bit of dedication to art by maybe subtracting something that's eating up time, that's something that you'll benefit so much from later, And also, I think there's a certain point where, as a creative person, although you want to be experiencing what's out there creatively, you have to kind of decide, am I a consumer of ideas, or am I a creator of ideas? And I think at a certain point you have to make that decision. And as part of that decision, sometimes you have to let go in order to gain some leverage on making artwork. You sort of have to stop taking in stuff and allow the creativity and imagination to kind of come from within. So, like I said, sort of addition by subtraction. And like I said, you don't want it to be, hey, I'm going to cut off all influences for as long as I'm making art. That doesn't really make sense. But for a period of time, I think it totally makes sense. So, number 4 is dedicated space. Now, I know people who they'll create, on the floor of their living room, they'll create on their kitchen table, but it's important to have a space that is your art space. So this is important for a lot of different reasons. Probably the most important part of it is that when you do have time to get down and do your work, you don't have to take out a bunch of stuff and reset, or find all of your supplies. They're already there. You're ready to go, and you can get the most out of it when you have the time to do it. So having a dedicated space, even if it's a tiny, tiny space, is still important in terms of getting the most out of your time. So whether it be like I said, like when I was a kid, I used to put my artwork on the bed and sit on the floor and use that as my table. And I did that for many years. And even as I became a pro, I used to do that. It was a long time before I actually even bought a table. But obviously, if you have space, use that space. And that way, when you get down to doing it, bam, you're ready to go. So, lastly, is what I call pre-gaming it. And what I mean by this is, in the same way that you would prepare for a meeting, or you would prepare for a project of any sort, you want to do that with your art. And what I mean by doing this is, before you get into, like, let's just say you were going to create a comic book, you would spend a period of time brainstorming or sketching up ideas as thumbnails, or preparing your layouts. So when you do have the time to create, you're not sitting there going, well, what am I going to create? You already know what you're going to create before you get there. And by blocking 1 day aside, or 2 days aside, or whatever increments you have of time, if you block that time aside, prepare mentally for what you're going to do, prepare sketch-wise, prepare idea-wise, when you do sit down, that time you have, you're going to be able to enhance that time by knowing exactly what you're going to do. And this is good too, because even before, I believe that a lot of creativity happens when you're not actually creating. It happens when you're away from the artwork. So knowing what you're going to create 24 hours before you actually get down to creating it, I think your brain begins to problem solve. And by the time you actually get to the point where you're going to put pen to paper or pencil to paper, you already begin to solve those problems. You're already thinking about how you're going to draw it, how it's going to work. So that's a huge benefit, and I think that's sort of overlooked a lot. So dedicating some time early on for just preparation is something that will help you a lot going forward. So one of the questions is, finding a dedicated space is hard to do with kids around. But totally understand that. What I did for a long time is I had one of those boxes you get at Walmart or Target that are just like the big plastic boxes, the kind of storage boxes. And I would put my whole setup in there, like what I was going to draw, whatever. And I'd put it away. Then when the kids went to sleep, bam, I'd break it out. And lap board is a good one. I break it out and start making art. And one of the things that I like to do too was sometimes I would go to sleep when the kids went to sleep, but get up before them and create while they're sleeping. And what's kind of good about that tactic, although it seems like it's kind of a no-brainer, is sometimes pushing yourself to stay up late to create doesn't give you your best work. But waking up early, getting ahead of everything, knowing exactly what you're going to do, you can get the most out of your time. A lot of times when I do conventions, I'll get up early before the show and finish commissions while everybody's sleeping. I mean, it takes, you have to have a certain level of dedication to do that, but if you're looking for time, there's ways to sort of balance it and move pieces around to get more. So just like a quick recap. So number one was set a beginning and end time to your work, so you can kind of get those victories when you know you've used the time that you set aside for it. Number 2 was go mobile, which means have your setup portable so that you can take it with you when you're out and about, and you can use those extra minutes that you spent going on Facebook or checking the scores or something. You can use that time to get ahead with your work. And then number 3 is addition by subtraction, which is taking something that is using time, like whether it be video games or binge watching or what have you, and putting that down for a little bit and taking that time, funneling it back into your art. Like I said, that's a controversial one. Doesn't have to be done forever, but I do think at a certain point you have to look like, what's eating up my time? Like, where's my time going? And usually it's towards something that is not helping you in the long run. It's entertaining, and that's great. There's something to be said for that. But if you really want your artwork to get a leg up, you definitely want to find out where the time's going. So number 4 was a dedicated workspace, even if it's a small space, or even if it's a great one that was mentioned by Mike was a lap board. I've used a bunch of different stuff to draw on, but having a little space that's your own, where you can keep your supplies and be ready to go, it's important. Number 5 is what I call pre-gaming it, and that is blocking some time aside to kind of figure out the nuts and bolts. So like, let's just say you say, I'm going to have 3 hours this week to work on my comic book project. Well, spend 1 hour figuring out your layouts, figuring out your designs, figuring out what you're going to create over those next 2 hours, so that when you're actually in that space, you're getting the most out of it. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or thoughts that you guys want to share, feel free. You're absolutely welcome. Did I pre-ink the panels? No, those are just pencils over. I did the layouts in blue line, and then I penciled over those, and then now I'm inking over them. Everyone seems interested in the microns, but I mean, I use a variety of stuff. I mean, this is one of my favorite ones, the Pilot, because it has like a thick side that if you want to fill in or do like some cool brushy type stuff, and then has a nice thin side to do like line work type stuff. That one it's a little heavy-handed. You're not going to be able to do the kind of stuff you do with microns. But man, this one right here, the Sailor, I really love this one. So it's got a nice flexible brush, and you can do some real nice I'll show you. You can do nice throne lines that go thick to thin with it. It's really nice. And then you can flip it around and bam, you got the little one. And this, if you get control with it, you can do nice thin to thick lines, and you can ink a whole book with this one right here. I mean, you can get your thin kind of lines plus your thicker throne lines. And this one though, definitely a keeper. I use that one a lot, especially like doing sketches. That one is really a good pen for that. And I mean, I know there's guys out there that swear by using like real brushes and all that, and I use them from time to time. But for me, I like to be able to set up quick and get down to drawing, you know. So I don't want to break out a whole ink bottle and all that. I want to just get down to doing it. So I admire all the guys that use like the traditional brushes, and I have them, but I like the ability to just oh, so you're saying that with the brush pens, well, it depends on the brush pen you get. I mean, there's the Pentel, the like the Sailor, like I said, this one is like really a lot, you get a lot of control with it. This one, man, I can't remember who makes it. I think it might be Pentel as well. But this one, you get quite a lot of control, but it's not a pen that's really durable, but you do get a lot of control with it. But the Pentel pocket brush, that one is really loose. So that one I think is hard to control. And I've noticed a lot of people start with that brush and they get freaked out on brush pens. They're like, oh man, these things don't work for me. But you just got to find the one that works. The Sailor brushes I found are pretty great in terms of being able to control them. The Pentel gives you great lines. You just have to work with it and learn how to control it. But that's like with any kind of brushy type thing. You're going to need to learn it. Yeah, that's the name of the company that makes it. If you look, I mean, I don't know if you can see it in the light. But yeah, it says Sailor. These are, they kind of make low cost, what they call disposable brush pens. You guys might have ran into them at Daiso. Daiso was putting them out for a while. They had these, they're really the cheapest version of them. But Sailor has higher quality ones that are more calligraphy type pens, but can be used well for comic book stuff. Yeah, so those are good ones to use. These things I swear by. I burned through them pretty quick, but man, they are like great, especially when you're on the road. It's the Uniball Signo gel pen, and it's basically, it's a whiteout pen that is just, you can do like any kind of drawing with it. You can do a lot of drawing because of the tip, allows you to kind of draw with white the way that you would draw with any kind of marker. So that's like a real plus, you know. This one I kind of I've been using the heck out of this brush, and it's like a signature brush for this particular, it's another Sailor one, but it's made specifically for this calligraphy artist, and I guess she sort of approves it. I read a little history of it, and they have her photo on the packaging, which is kind of funny. But this one has like a really weird tip, but it is awesome. It's like you can do really nice outline stuff with it, and throwing lines has a surprising amount of control. So I get all these at Jet Pens. If you guys have never been to that site, it has basically all the kind of pens you would get in Japan. You can get them there. So here was the Sailor pen that was really popular at Daiso for a while, and you could get these for like $1.50, and people were going nuts with them, and they were fantastic. They have a really like squishy sort of edge to them that's great for popping in blacks when you're doing sketches and stuff. And then it had like a fine point that was just awesome. Like, see, super thin. You could get really nice lines with it, thrown lines. It's really great. I mean, for like $1 or whatever it was going for. I mean, I bought like a gajillion of them. But they've discontinued these as far as I've seen, but hopefully they'll bring them back. This was another pen. I believe it's, I think it might be a Sailor too. But another disposable pen, but you can see the tip is like super small, super thin, so you can get some nice lines with that. Okay, so the question is, what am I working on here? So this is a new project called Mirror, and it's going to be out in a couple weeks. You're going to be able to check it out for free, and it's going to be a 6-month-long weekly episode season where you're going to be able to be introduced to all these characters. You're going to be able to download an app, the Webtoon app, and you're going to be able to get it for free. So it's my newest project. As far as Emerald City Blues goes, the fourth and final issue is all but done. I just have to print it. So I've been waiting to print it, to reprint the first 3 issues, because those are all sold out. But I kind of want to do new covers on them. And that's just me being a freaky artist, in the sense that anytime you put something out again, you kind of want to make it special. And so I've been trying to put time aside. Obviously, Mirror's eaten up a lot of time, but I've been trying to put time aside to create these new covers, because I think this is going to be the final printing that I do on Emerald City Blues before I make a trade. So I wanted to do some really go all out and do some covers that I thought sort of represent the series better now that I've gone farther with it. So I'm sort of waiting to block that time aside. Since this weekend will be like my last convention, I'm probably not going to print them until January. I did think about printing them and maybe trying to make them available for Christmas, which I could totally do that. But we'll see. Mirror's kind of taking up a lot of my time. Emerald City Blues has always been kind of like an experimental thing. I love doing it, but it's anytime I do work on it, I want it to be something fun and different and get the most out of it. So as soon as I'm finished with 4, which has really come down to, I think, about 4 pages that need to be lettered, and then I could send it to the printer. But like I said, I'd like to do some new covers and put that out in like a unique way. Because if a lot of people, it always happens when you put out the latest issue, people discover it because they're like, oh, it's a new issue, and then they're like, what issues do I don't have? So then they're interested in picking up the earlier issues. And if they're going to do that, I'd like there to be a differentiation between the covers that people bought initially and then these newer covers. So that's the little bit of attention deficit disorder artist part of my brain, probably overthinking it. But I try to think of it how I would feel just if I was discovered this Emerald City Blues and I wanted to get them. I would like it to be something unique every time out. So Me Too, I have a second issue of that done. And next year, my plan is to put Mirror out, which is like the #1 thing. But then I want to start taking some of these things I've been working on the last couple years and put them into trades, so that or just like standalone graphic novels, so that way I sort of have these evergreen books that when people, whether they see me at a show or if they find out about me online, they're able to go and sort of have access to a library of stuff that's, each one is different, but I sort of want to curate that. I don't want it to be just thrown out there, and because I sort of see, you know, I'm not doing Spider-Man or something like that where it sort of has a particular thing that everybody knows. So when I'm doing something, I want that to be different and unique to the idea. So I want the design of how it looks and everything to fit that. And that kind of takes some time. Yeah, I'm really dedicating myself to putting out a lot more work next year. And what I'm building towards is putting out a graphic novel a year. So what I want to be able to do is every time Comic-Con or New York Comic-Con or San Diego comes around, you're going to be able to come see me and see something brand new. That's what my kind of hope is that from year to year, you'll be able to come and get a standalone graphic novel. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you soon.